Hello everyone, this is Isidore, and in this episode of Greenskin Unit Analysis, I'll discuss the Greenskin Melee Cavalry and Chariot units. The Greenskins probably have the most varied cavalry of any faction in the game, allowing you to customize your force with a great number of different light and heavy cavalry units or chariots. There's a Greenskin cavalry unit for just about every task you can imagine. The cheapest Greenskin cavalry unit consists of Goblin Wolf Riders. They come in large numbers, are shielded, and are extremely fast, capable of outrunning almost all other ground-based units. This makes them excellent at hunting down enemy ranged units or routing units, though they're not quite fast enough to catch enemy skirmish cavalry. Unless you're playing the campaign, then you can research a speed upgrade for them. They also get Vanguard deployment, which with a bit of creativity lets you place them in a spot the enemy might not expect and then launch their attack from there. However, while they're incredibly speedy, their overall stats are very low. While their numbers are high for a cavalry unit, this does mean that they can get beaten by a lot of infantry units. Even infantry units that are arguably not that good in melee, like Quarrelers or Orc Boys. As such, they're best used in flanking maneuvers and preferably in large swarms that allow them to overwhelm the opposition. Never let them get bogged down in an extended melee. They won't last long in such a situation, and due to their high speed, they can easily rout off of the map. Forest Goblin Spider Riders are another unit of light cavalry, though they're a lot tougher than Wolf Riders, having significantly better stats in all categories except for speed and number of soldiers. They're still quite fast, but not nearly as fast as Wolf Riders. They also get Vanguard deployment and are shielded, much like Wolf Riders, and they get Strider, which means they ignore movement speed and combat penalties from terrain, meaning they can launch speedy attacks from some very unexpected angles. However, their biggest appeal lies in their poisonous attacks. Whatever they hit will deal significantly less damage to everything, which benefits both the Spider Rider squad and everything else that's fighting its target at that time. Because of their good speed and shields, they're great at hunting down enemy ranged units, and because their stats are higher than Goblin Wolf Riders, they're much more able to get stuck in a melee. Of course, as cavalry, their best use is to flank enemy units and then repeatedly charging into them, dealing both heavy damage on impact and applying poison with every hit. Of course, Spider Riders are still light cavalry. Unless they have a major numbers advantage, other heavier cavalry units can easily beat the Spider Riders in direct combat, and powerful melee infantry, even those that aren't anti-large, can beat Spider Riders in an extended melee. The Moon-Howlers are a unit of renown of Wolf Riders. The thing that makes them stand out from an equally experienced Wolf Rider squad is that they have fear, which reduces the leadership of nearby enemy units. This makes them ideal as the tip of the spear for a flanking force, as they'll speed up the breaking of enemy leadership with their mere presence. Night Goblin Squig are the third light cavalry type available to the Greenskins. Much like Spider Riders, they serve as a bit of an upgrade over Wolf Riders, trading in a small amount of speed and soldiers for massively increased stats and a few special abilities. However, I like to see Spider Riders as the durable upgrade of Wolf Riders, while Squig Hoppers are the aggressive upgrade. The reasoning behind this is that the Squig Hoppers have a much higher charge bonus over Spider Riders and more speed, as well as a bonus to their damage against enemy infantry units, meaning they hit much harder than Spider Riders, and because they're also immune to psychology, they don't have to worry as much about fear and terror when selecting their targets. They also have poisonous attacks, but unlike Wolf Riders and Spider Riders, have no shields, rendering them more vulnerable to ranged fire. If you want a light cavalry unit that can hit hard, Squig Hoppers are your best choice. However, they're quite vulnerable to getting counterattacked, so use them very carefully. It's easy to lose the entire squad on an erroneous charge. Durkit's Squigs are a unit of renown of Squig Hoppers. Their big appeal is that they get scaly skin, giving them a 25% resistance to ranged fire. It's a good bonus, but it doesn't help them in melee, and under most circumstances it's not nearly as good as having shields. If you do pick these guys, put them at the front of the charge so that if your cavalry battalion gets shot at, they'll be the first hit. Orc Boar Boyz are your shock cavalry, serving not so much as a spear's tip as a large hammer to swing against the enemy army and break apart his formations. They have a number of advantages, namely that they're very durable compared to your light cavalry, having better armor, health and carrying shields. Their biggest appeal, however, lies in their armor-piercing attacks and their huge charge bonus. These guys cause enormous damage when charging into enemy units, regardless of how much armor their target has. Unfortunately, outside of the charge, the Boar Boy's stats are actually quite low, so they're ill-suited for extended melees. There's no doubt that the best way to use them is to charge into the enemy lines, retreat and then repeat. Savage Orc Boar Boyz traded in their shields and a good chunk of their armor and melee defense for more speed, more melee attack and an even higher charge bonus. On top of that, their war paint also gives them physical resistance, meaning they're more resistant to armor piercing attacks than regular Boar Boys. Most importantly, they get Frenzy, which means they get huge bonuses to their weapon damage, their melee attack and their charge bonus, and are immune to psychology as long as their leadership remains above 50%. As such, Savage Orc Boar Boys are a great choice if you want to invest extra in hitting power, but depending on your targets, they might not be as durable as regular Boar Boys, and they lose a great deal of their statistical advantages if their leadership drops too far for any reason. Orc Boar Boy Biggins are the bigger, meaner versions of regular Orc Boar Boys. At first glance, you can see that they get stat upgrades almost across the board, the exception being in armor and melee defense. However, while they certainly hit harder than regular Boar Boys, the biggest appeal of Orc Boar Boy Biggins is that they get anti-large bonuses to their damage. This makes them ideal as anti-cavalry units, as their armor-piercing damage and their anti-large bonuses can make quick work of the Knights of the Human Realms. Even if the enemy has no heavily armored knights, Orc Boar Boy Biggins can also take on monsters or just be used as regular shock cavalry. However, while they have more health than regular Boar Boys, they lack shields and have less melee defense, which leaves Orc Boar Boy Biggins a bit more vulnerable to damage than regular Boar Boys. Orc Boar Chariots are the most destructive chariots in the Greenskin army. They're very durable, with each chariot being able to absorb large amounts of damage before dropping, which helps them shine as they plow through enemy infantry formations. However, what makes them really terrifying is their enormous charge bonus and their high damage, which is both armor piercing and anti-infantry, giving the chariot the ability to cause some really devastating damage by running over as many units as possible. However, like all chariots, they're terrible at prolonged melees and are vulnerable to armor-piercing ranged weapons. In addition, they can get intercepted by enemy cavalry, who can easily overwhelm the chariots with sheer numbers and will generally be too fast for the chariot to be able to pull out and escape. Worse still, anything that's charge resistant will almost completely negate the power of chariots, as one part of the chariot's enormous power lies in his huge charge bonus. If you want a unit that can cause enormous casualties to enemy infantry, the Boar Chariot is a great choice, but only if you don't mind microing it around. If you feel you don't have the time to constantly ram it in and out of combat, leave it and get Boar Boys instead. They're a little easier to micromanage. Savage Orc Boar Boy Biggins are slightly deceptive, as they're not truly an upgrade over Orc Boar Boy Biggins, since they lack anti-large bonuses. Instead, these guys are the next step up from Savage Orc Boar Boys, utilizing their immense stat line for pure hitting power. While their stats and their cost are higher than that of regular Savage Boar Boys, they don't have any new abilities, so they work just like Savage Orc Boar Boys, but with higher stats. The Broken Tusks Mob is a unit of renown of Orc Boar Boy Biggins. They have two big appeals over regular Boar Boy biggins. One is that they're fairly heavily armored at 90 points each, making them the most heavily armored cavalry unit for the orcs. Their second is that they have Encourage, giving them their own leadership aura as though the whole squad was a hero or lord. This makes the squad ideal as the leader of your horde of Boar Boys, keeping their morale up while using their superior armor to soak up damage for the rest of them. That's it for the Greenskin melee cavalry. If you liked this video, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'd like to support me in making more content, please visit my Patreon. You can find a link in the description below. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.